You ever have one of those moments where you stare at something so absurd, your brain refuses to process it? That was me, standing in my driveway, holding a cup of coffee, staring at a stranger's car inside my garage. It was early morning. The air was crisp, the neighborhood quiet, except for my brain, which was screaming, "What? The hell?" I blinked, shook my head, and looked again. Nope, still there. A white SUV neatly parked inside my garage. The garage door was wide open as if to say, "Oh yeah, this is totally normal. Nothing to see here." Now, let me introduce myself. I'm Daniel Carter, 62 years old, retired school principal, proud homeowner, and someone who does not tolerate nonsense. And let me tell you this was nonsense of the highest order. Now, I didn't have to guess whose car it was. Nope. I knew exactly who was behind this crime against property rights. Her name was Karen Davis. She had moved in 3 months ago, and she was, without a doubt, the single most entitled person I had ever met. Karen was about 20 years younger than me, but she acted like she ran the entire street. She had that high ponytail that bounced like it was powered by entitlement, a collection of neon leggings that could be seen from space, and an absolute refusal to acknowledge reality. You see, Karen had been on a rampage ever since she arrived. She reported my neighbor's mailbox for being a shade of blue that wasn't aesthetically pleasing. She called the HOA because someone had a garden gnome, claiming it was an eyesore that lowered property values. And last week, she tried to fine a single mom down the street for leaving her recycling bin out an hour past pickup. But this was next level. At this point, my coffee was getting cold and my patience was boiling over. I marched across the street, knocked on Karen's door, and waited. A few seconds later, she flung it open, wearing a hot pink workout top, holding a blender full of some green health sludge, and looking completely unbothered. She saw me, took a sip, and raised an eyebrow like I was the one being unreasonable. "Oh, Daniel. Good morning." "Good morning? Good morning." "Karen, is there a reason your car's in my garage?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She blinked like the question didn't make sense. Then she laughed. "Oh, that. Yeah, I parked there last night. The street was full and I didn't want my car getting dirty. You weren't using it, so I figured it'd be fine." I stared at her. She parked in my garage because she didn't want her precious SUV to get dirty on a completely clean, dry street. I took a deep breath. "Karen, that's not how garages work. You can't just take them." She shrugged. "Well, technically I didn't take it. It's still yours. I just borrowed it." She said this like she had borrowed a cup of sugar. I was speechless. "Karen, move your car. Now." She rolled her eyes. "Ugh, Daniel, don't be dramatic. I'll move it later. I'm about to go to yoga." Then she tried to close the door on me. At that moment, something in me snapped. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to reason with a person who thought property laws were optional. I was going to teach her a lesson. I turned around, walked back to my house, and hatched a plan. See, Karen had mistakenly assumed that just because I was retired, I had nothing but free time and unlimited patience. She was about to learn exactly how wrong she was. The first thing I did, I locked my garage. Now, I wasn't reckless, I wasn't about to damage her car, but I did have an old padlock that used to secure my backyard shed. I took that bad boy, walked over to the side door of the garage, and locked it from the outside. Then, for extra security, I unplugged the automatic garage opener. No remote control was getting that door open now. Then, I went about my day. Now, at this point, some might say, "Daniel, wouldn't it be easier to just have it towed?" Sure, but that wouldn't be nearly as fun. I wanted Karen to feel the full weight of her stupidity. A few hours later, I was sitting on my porch, enjoying a fresh cup of coffee when I saw Karen's neon leggings power walking toward my house. She had her yoga mat in one hand, her phone in the other, and she was completely oblivious to what was about to happen. She marched right up to my garage, pulled out her key fob, and hit the unlock button. Nothing. She frowned, Tried again. Still nothing. That's when she walked up to the garage, grabbed the handle, and pulled. And of course, it didn't budge. Now, from my chair, I saw it happen in real time. First, confusion. Then, mild annoyance. Then, full-blown panic. Karen dropped her yoga mat, tried the door again, and then pulled out her phone to call someone. I could only assume she was calling me. My phone buzzed. Karen Davis, incoming call. Did I answer? Absolutely not. Instead, I watched her through my front window. She called twice more. Each time I let it ring. Then, she did exactly what I was hoping she'd do. She stomped over to my front door and rang the doorbell. Ding dong. I waited. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. I took another sip of coffee. Then, finally, bang, bang, bang. I let her stew for another 30 seconds before I casually opened the door. "Oh, hey, Karen. What's up?" I asked, feigning complete innocence. Her face was a deep shade of red. "My car. Open the garage." I blinked. "I don't understand. Why would I do that?" She gaped at me, actually offended. "Because it's my car." I tilted my head. "Oh, I see. So now it's a private garage? That's interesting." She crossed her arms. "Daniel, this isn't funny." "I actually think it's hilarious." She growled like a frustrated toddler and pointed a manicured finger at my face. "If you don't open that garage right now, I will call the police." And that, folks, was exactly what I wanted to hear. I shrugged. "Be my guest." She blinked. "Wait, what?" "Call the police. I'd love to hear you explain how your car ended up in my garage without my permission." For the first time, she hesitated. She wasn't stupid. She knew if the police got involved, she'd have to admit to trespassing. So, instead, she switched tactics. "Look, Daniel, I didn't mean anything by it. Just open the garage and we'll forget this happened." Oh, now she wanted to be friendly. "No can do, Karen. I'm very busy. I'll be available tomorrow." Her jaw dropped. "Tomorrow?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm feeling kind of tired. I think I'll turn in early. See you in the morning." Then I closed the door in her face. Now I thought she'd give up and go home. Nope. Instead, she stomped back to her house and called reinforcements. About 20 minutes later, I heard more voices outside. I looked through my security camera feed. Oh ho! She brought the HOA president. Mr. Johnson, the HOA president, was a frail man in his 70s who mostly tried to avoid conflict. But here he was, dragged into Karen's mess. I opened the door, and before he could speak, I put my hands up. "Before you start, I just want to be clear. Karen parked her car in my garage without my permission. This is not an HOA issue. This is a private property issue." Karen huffed. "It's a community matter." I shook my head. "No, Karen, it's your stupidity problem, and it's staying that way." To my surprise, Mr. Johnson nodded. "Karen, if you parked in his garage without permission, that's on you." She stared at him in absolute betrayal. "What? You're the HOA. Do something." Mr. Johnson sighed. "The HOA doesn't handle private garage disputes." Karen turned back to me. "Fine, I'll get a locksmith." I smiled. Good luck with that. I already told every locksmith in town that my garage is not to be opened without my approval, and I have the police report to back it up. Karen's eye twitched. You... She was too mad to even finish her sentence. At this point, I yawned dramatically. "Welp, this has been fun. I'm going to get some rest. Hope you find a good place to park next time." And with that, I closed the door again. Karen? She completely lost it. She started screaming into her phone, pacing in front of my house, hands flailing. And me? I turned off my porch light, sat in my recliner, and turned on the news. I slept like a baby that night. By the time I woke up the next morning, Karen had already been busy. I stepped outside, stretched, and saw something new taped to my front door. A bright red HOA violation notice. I peeled it off and read it. Violation Notice. Your property is in violation of HOA Regulation Number 3021 regarding the improper usage of a garage space in a community-oriented neighborhood. Failure to rectify this issue immediately will result in escalating fines and possible legal action. Signed, HOA Representative Karen Davis. I nearly choked on my coffee. Regulation Number 3021. What kind of made-up nonsense was this? I turned the notice over. Blank. No HOA letterhead, no official signatures from other board members. Just Karen's sloppy attempt at trying to force my hand. Oh, this was getting good. I calmly walked back inside, pulled out my phone, and dialed the actual HOA president, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, just checking, did the HOA implement a new rule about garage spaces overnight? Silence, then a deep sigh. No, Daniel. Whatever Karen gave you, it's fake. I figured. You mind sending me a formal statement confirming that? I'll draft it right now. Within 15 minutes, I had an official email from the HOA board disavowing Karen's notice. So, what did I do? I printed out 10 copies, walked outside, and taped them on every neighbor's mailbox. Then, just for fun, I went back to Karen's house and taped one directly onto her front door. About an hour later, I was back in my house when I saw flashing red and blue lights pull up outside. Karen had actually called the police. Oh, this was going to be fun. I grabbed my coffee, stepped outside, and greeted the officer like an old friend. "Good morning, officer. What seems to be the problem?" Karen stormed up beside him. "He's holding my car hostage. This is illegal." The officer, a no-nonsense guy named Officer Jenkins, looked between us. "Ma'am, are you saying your car was stolen?" Karen crossed her arms. "Not exactly, but he locked it in his garage and refuses to let me get it." "Ma'am, was the vehicle parked inside his garage with his permission?" Karen's face twitched. "Not exactly." Jenkins turned to me. "Sir, do you have security footage of how the vehicle got into your garage?" "Why, yes, I do." I pulled out my phone and showed him the footage from my security cameras. The moment Karen waltzed into my garage, parked her car, and walked away like she owned the place. All on tape. Jenkins nodded. "So, let me get this straight. She entered your private property without permission and left her vehicle inside?" I smiled. "That's correct." Karen's jaw dropped. Well, I had an emergency." Jenkins raised an eyebrow. "What was the emergency?" Karen stammered. Well, the street was full." Jenkins sighed and turned to me. "Sir, you're within your rights to secure your own property. However, I'll ask that you release the vehicle now to prevent further issues." And then he smirked. "But if she ever does this again, you're free to have it towed immediately." Karen froze. "Wait. No. You can't be on his side." Jenkins shrugged. "Ma'am, you trespassed and illegally parked. Be glad he didn't tow your car the second he found it." Karen looked utterly betrayed. I smiled and pulled out my phone. "All right, officer, let's open the garage." I pressed the button on my app, and the garage door whirred to life. Karen practically ran inside, yanked open her car door, and threw herself into the driver's seat. But before she could drive off, I leaned in close to her window. "If you ever park in my garage again, Karen, I will have it towed. No second chances." Karen glared. Then, without another word, she peeled out of my driveway, tires screeching. Jenkins tipped his hat. "Nice job handling that, sir." I grinned. "Pleasure's all mine." Now, at this point, I figured Karen had learned her lesson. But of course, I underestimated her stupidity. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, my security cameras sent me an alert. I checked my phone, and there she was. Karen, in my driveway. And what was she doing? She was placing a handwritten HOA violation letter on my door. I zoomed in on the footage. The note read, "Violation, you have been warned." Oh, okay. You want to play dirty, Karen? Let's. The very next morning, I marched straight to the HOA board meeting. I walked in with my printed evidence, my security footage, and my pettiest smile. Karen was already there, sitting at the front like she ran the place. When she saw me, she smirked. But when I walked up to the table and handed Mr. Johnson my evidence, her face drained of color. "Mr. Johnson, I'd like to formally file a complaint against Karen Davis for harassment, falsifying HOA violations, and trespassing on my property." I handed over security footage, the fake violation notices, and a statement from Officer Jenkins. The board members flipped through the papers, their expressions darkening. Mr. Johnson sighed. "Karen, care to explain this?" Karen stammered. I was just enforcing the rules." Mr. Johnson slammed his hand on the table. "Karen, you are not authorized to make up rules and harass residents. This is exactly why we've received so many complaints about you." Karen's face turned bright red. Then, the final blow. Mr. Johnson looked around the room and asked, "All in favor of removing Karen Davis from her position on the HOA?" Every single hand went up. Even the board members who used to tolerate her nonsense had had enough. Mr. Johnson turned to Karen. "Effective immediately, you are no longer a board member, and if you continue harassing residents, we will pursue legal action against you." Karen looked like she was going to explode. She stood up, slammed her chair back, and screamed, "This isn't over." Then she stormed out of the room. The entire meeting sat in silence for a few seconds. Then, slowly, one by one, people started clapping. Mr. Johnson turned to me. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll make sure she doesn't bother you again." I nodded. Glad to help. And with that, Karen's reign of terror was officially over. But trust me, I had a feeling she wasn't done yet. You'd think that after getting humiliated in front of the entire HOA, Karen would have learned her lesson. Oh no, this woman had the audacity to come back with a vengeance. 2 days after she was removed from the HOA board, I woke up to the sound of construction. Loud, obnoxious drilling and hammering. I stepped outside, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Karen, in my driveway. And what was she doing? She was installing a massive, private HO parking sign on my property. I blinked, took a deep breath, and calmly walked over. "Karen, what in the world are you doing?" She smirked, hands on her hips. "Just reclaiming community space. This driveway belongs to the HOA, and since I'm still a resident, I have every right to enforce parking policies." I stared at her. "Karen, you are no longer on the HOA board, and this is my driveway." She actually laughed. Not for long. That's when I saw it. She wasn't just installing a sign. She had filed paperwork claiming my driveway as shared community property and had sent copies to some of the other neighbors, hoping to rally them against me. Oh, she was desperate, and she had just given me the perfect excuse to destroy her. I walked back into my house, pulled out my phone, and made 3 calls. 1. A private towing company. 2. A lawyer. 3. The actual HOA board. And then I sat back and waited. First, the tow truck arrived within 20 minutes. Karen's car was parked partially on my driveway. Perfect. When she heard the truck's engine, she came sprinting outside, screaming, "What are you doing? You can't tow my car." I grinned. "Actually, I can. You parked on private property." She was still shrieking as her car was lifted onto the tow truck and hauled away. That's when the second wave of my plan went into action. The HOA board arrived with an attorney. Karen's face turned sheet white. "Karen," Mr. Johnson said, "we have received your fraudulent property claim. Do you realize how illegal this is?" Karen stammered. This is a misunderstanding." The lawyer stepped forward. "Karen, you have falsified legal documents. That is a felony offense." You could actually see the moment Karen realized she had just screwed herself. And then, the final nail in the coffin. A police car pulled up. Officer Jenkins stepped out. "Karen Davis." She froze. You are under arrest for falsifying legal property claims, harassment, and trespassing. Cue the full meltdown. What? You can't arrest me. I was just trying to enforce community standards. Jenkins sighed. Karen, you don't even have HOA authority anymore. You're just a crazy woman harassing her neighbors. And with that, he slapped the cuffs on her. The whole neighborhood gathered outside to watch her get shoved into the back of the police car. And then, I did something I had been dying to do for weeks. I waved, real slow, as she screamed at me through the window. I'll get you for this, Daniel. This isn't over. Spoiler alert, it was absolutely over. The aftermath. Sweet, sweet justice. With Karen out of the picture, the neighborhood finally went back to normal. The HOA board publicly apologized for ever allowing Karen to have authority in the first place. Her house was put up for sale within a month, because apparently she had massive fines stacked up from all the complaints filed against her. And as for me, I got one last beautiful moment of satisfaction. A few days after she was arrested, I received a small envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a single note written in all caps. You win. And that, my friends, was the end of Karen.